At first glance, the open ocean seems an endless, serene expanse, a smooth pane of sapphire stretching beyond the imagination. But drift a little closer, peel back the glistening skin of the waves, and another truth surges to the surface. This is no tranquil sea. It is a battlefield, vast and merciless, where survival is not promised, only fought for with tooth, muscle, and cunning. Here there are no walls to hide behind, no rocky alcoves or leafy camouflage, only open water in every direction, a three-dimensional theater of motion and mayhem, where the rules are simple and brutal: swim faster, strike harder, or vanish. Beneath the first shimmer of sunlight, life unfolds in frantic layers. Tiny flashes of silver pulse through the blue: sardines, anchovies, herring, moving in dense, frantic clouds, each individual a trembling heartbeat in a living organism of fear. They flicker and swirl as if stitched together by invisible threads, sensing one another's panic before the threat even appears. And it always appears. A shadow deepens beneath the school, and the ocean itself seems to exhale. From below, sleek missiles surge upward, tuna, their bodies flexing with blistering speed, each built like a torpedo designed by some mischievous god of physics. They carve through the bait ball with surgical precision, mouths agape, leaving only spirals of glittering scales behind, like the confetti of a massacre. Yet even these swift assassins are not safe. Hunting here is a blood sport, a chain reaction of violence, and predators themselves are often prey. A dark shape, far larger, splits the depths. A great white shark, ancient and unhurried, slides into the scene with the cold certainty of a king inspecting his court. At a glance, it seems almost lazy, until it doesn't. With a sudden explosion of muscle, the shark cleaves a tuna clean from the pack, a flash of ivory teeth and a froth of pink mist. The sea closes over the crime in an instant, the only evidence a single rogue fin fluttering down like a torn flag. But no crown in this blue kingdom is uncontested. From the edge of the visible world, a ripple becomes a wave, and the wave becomes a fleet. Orcas, the wolves of the sea, the mob bosses of the open water, roll into the frame with terrifying unity. Their dorsal fins cut the surface like black knives, gleaming under the merciless sun. Their method is teamwork, their strength not merely in muscle but in mind. They encircle the great white, harrying it with feints and taunts, exhausting it with the same ruthless patience a chess master reserves for a trapped opponent. In a place with no shelter, the smartest killer often beats the strongest, and nature, with a glint of irony, reminds us that brains, not just brawn, decide who dines and who dies. Above this watery battlefield, another threat looms where the sky kisses the sea. Gannets and shearwaters, seemingly delicate creatures, plunge like arrows through the air, hitting the surface with enough force to stun prey beneath the waves. It's a daily miracle in the open ocean. Tiny feathered hunters piercing the domain of giants, stealing meals straight from the maelstrom. Every inch of this world is contested. Every moment is a gamble. Even in these deadly games, absurdity sneaks in. Flying fish, those pranksters of the pelagic world, burst from the water with frantic energy, soaring over the heads of their would-be killers like panicked acrobats. Their glistening bodies catch the light in flashes of rainbow, a fleeting beauty bought at the price of exhaustion. Most land safely back into the blue, but some land squarely into the waiting jaws of dolphins, whose acrobatic leaps are not just athletic showmanship, but perfectly timed acts of predation. Below, deeper still, lurk monsters no less terrifying for their smaller size. The cookie-cutter shark, barely the size of a loaf of bread, practices a predatory style that would seem farcical if it weren't so effective. It suctions onto the flanks of whales, tuna, even submarines, drilling out neat, round plugs of flesh with a mouth shaped like a mechanical corer. In this endless sea, even the tiniest players find a way to carve out survival, sometimes literally. The smells of salt, iron, and something faintly sour, the smell of fresh blood diluted into vastness, hang unseen in the currents, attracting yet more players to the killing ground. No death goes unnoticed here. Sharks sniff the faintest chemical whiff of wounded prey from miles away. Squid, sensing the vibrations of dying fish, rise in swirling columns from the gloom. Like opportunistic bandits, they revel in the chaos, adding their own flashing strikes to the spiraling dance of life and death. And then, just as quickly as it began, the frenzy dissipates. Silence reigns again. The sea, indifferent and unmarked, laps gently against itself, wiping away the memory of violence as if it were never there. But beneath that silence, tension coils like a spring, waiting for the next breach, the next chase, the next eruption of survival's raw ballet. Because here in the endless blue, peace is only the eye of the storm. Every creature that glides through this watery infinity carries two invisible weights: hunger and fear. A dolphin calf learns its first desperate sprint not as a playful game, but as a survival lesson written in muscle memory. A juvenile shark is as likely to be eaten by its larger brethren as it is to become a predator itself. Even the mighty orca, born into a world of strategic brilliance, must master the art of patience or face starvation. It is a paradox as old as the ocean itself. In a realm with no walls, survival depends not on hiding, but on movement, relentless, graceful, brutal. Here, beauty and savagery are not opposites but companions, twined together like currents of the deep. And as the camera pulls back, rising into the thin, salt-laden sky, the stage reveals itself in full. A kingdom without a castle. A war without ceasefires. A world where life must be swift, shrewd and merciless, or it will be swallowed whole. But what happens when even the hunters become the hunted? When unexpected alliances tilt the odds, and the deadliest creatures must fight not only each other, but the ocean itself. The next blood tide is already rising. The ocean, under the bruised light of early morning, holds its breath. The surface is glassy, stretched taut like the skin of some vast drum, and every ripple seems to carry the weight of anticipation. Below, suspended in the cool cobalt world just beneath the waves, a titan moves with the deceptive grace of a drifting shadow. The great white shark, Carcharodon carcharias, the ancient ambassador of apex design, glides without effort, without sound, a living paradox of violence wrapped in elegance. Nothing about its movement betrays intent, no ripple, no sudden dart. It is the master of patience, the artist of the ambush, a predator that has perfected the art of invisibility, despite being nearly the size of a small car. Its quarry, a lone fur seal, dances near the surface in the golden light, blissfully unaware that death coils below. The seal, clever and swift in its own right, has survived on a razor's edge for months, dodging hungry mouths at every turn. Yet here, in this immense blue arena, the advantage tips to those who understand the physics of light and shadow. As the sun climbs, it casts downward beams through the water like shimmering swords, dazzling and blinding, and the shark knows this stage intimately. It positions itself directly beneath the sun, so that when the seal looks down, it sees only darkness, the deep void masking the missile pointed squarely at its heart. The great white is not merely floating, it is calculating, mapping the angles, judging the distance with uncanny precision. Muscles coil along its flanks like drawn bows, energy pooling, vibrating on the edge of release. And then, without warning, the ocean explodes. In an instant too fast for the mind to follow, 2,000 pounds of fury detonate upwards, tearing through the surface in a geyser of foam and blood and sunlit spray. The shark breaches the air entirely, its jaws agape, its enormous body pirouetting in a grotesque ballet, carrying the unfortunate seal skyward in a final macabre flight. The crowd on the shore, should they be lucky enough to witness it, would gasp. But this is no stunt. It is nature's most violent efficiency revealed in one breathtaking arc. Gravity reclaims the monster, and with a thunderous splash, the ocean swallows both predator and prey. For a heartbeat, only silence remains, the kind that feels heavier than any sound, before the sea settles again into its eternal rhythm, indifferent to the lives it just consumed. Yet the great white's mastery does not end with brute force. Far from the reckless killers of Hollywood legend, these sharks are tacticians, scholars of the hunt, adapting their strategies to the seasons, the tides, even the moods of the winds. In the frigid waters off South Africa's Seal Island, they time their attacks with almost absurd precision, rising from depths of over 30 meters in a single, blinding burst that gives their prey less than a second to react. It is a technique so effective, so theatrical, that researchers have given it a name of whispered reverence, the Polaris breach. Like some terrible, carnivorous star, the shark launches vertically from the abyss, achieving speeds of over 40 kilometers per hour, a velocity more often associated with cheetahs on land, not hulking beasts of the sea. But not all attacks are so clean. For every stunning kill, there are moments of almost comic miscalculation. Great whites sometimes misfire, mistiming their launch, missing their prey entirely, and soaring into the air with a splashy, undignified flop that would make even a dolphin chuckle behind a flipper. And yet even these failures serve a deadly purpose, sowing terror among the seal colonies, forcing them into panicked mistakes, exhausting them until a second strike finishes the job. Nature, ever the ruthless tutor, rewards persistence more than perfection. Incredibly, even the great white's sense of smell, so often lauded, is secondary to its true marvel, the ampullae of Lorenzini. These tiny, jelly-filled pores scattered over its snout allow it to detect the faint electric whispers of a heartbeat in the water. A struggling fish, a wounded seal, even the twitch of a fin, all send out invisible signals that betray their presence. In the blue battlefield, hiding is a fantasy. Every living creature pulses with a telltale signature, and to the great white, the ocean is an orchestra of fear and weakness, each note guiding it to its next meal. But perhaps the shark's most surprising ally is the ocean itself. In colder waters, thermal layers stack like invisible barriers. Great whites have learned to cruise the thermocline, the boundary between warm and cold water, using the sudden temperature shift to mask their approach. Prey above, floating in warmer currents, never senses the icy dagger rising from below. In this game of life and death, even molecules are weapons, and the shark wields them with unconscious genius. Strangely enough, for all their terror-inspiring prowess, great whites remain deeply mysterious. No one has witnessed a great white mating. No one knows exactly where all females give birth. They vanish for months, diving into the twilight zones of the ocean, sometimes descending deeper than 1,200 meters, beyond human reach, beyond even understanding. In the ultimate irony, the most feared predator of the open sea is also one of its greatest enigmas, a ghost slipping through a realm too vast, too alien for us to fully comprehend. As the day ages and the golden light fades to bruised purple, the great white sinks back into the deep, a ruler retreating to a kingdom no eye can follow. Somewhere below, it patrols the invisible corridors between light and darkness, forever searching, forever stalking. Every heartbeat, every shadow, every errant flicker above could trigger the next spectacular surge toward the sky. Yet the ocean's deadliest performances are far from over. For lurking in the currents ahead, another predator sharpens its blades not with teeth, but with cold, steely precision. A creature built not for brute strength, but for duels at the speed of thought. The swordfish is waiting, and the duel of the deep is about to begin. The sea changes when the orcas arrive. It is not a shift seen by the eye, not at first, but something that hums through the water itself. An ancient vibration that whispers to every creature nearby. The wolves of the waves are here. Above the water, the world remains deceptively calm. A pale mist clings to the surface, the early light of morning painting it gold, and from the shore, it looks like any other peaceful day on the open blue. But peer deeper, where the world turns darker and more secretive, and the drama unfolds with a precision that borders on the uncanny. The orcas glide forward in a loose formation, each one a monolith of black and white, moving with the ease of creatures perfectly designed for this liquid arena. Their dorsal fins slice the water like silent daggers, some towering nearly 2 meters high, casting dark ripples that announce their approach before their bodies even break the surface. Yet it is not size or strength that makes these predators so formidable. It is strategy. They are not random hunters thrown into chaos by hunger. They are a regiment, an orchestra of death, each member knowing its role, each action a carefully tuned note in a symphony of pursuit. A pod of orcas hunting is a sight of almost unsettling intelligence. Off the coast of Patagonia, they're infamous for a hunting tactic that feels more like a heist than an attack. They surge towards the beach, riding the surf in calculated unison, and with breathtaking timing, they strand themselves temporarily on the sand to snatch unsuspecting seals basking too close to the shoreline. For a moment, their massive bodies lie helpless, stranded between two worlds, yet the orcas have gambled with skill. With a few mighty wriggles and twists, they launch themselves back into the surf, dragging their flailing prize with them. Evolution, it seems, rewards those willing to play dangerously. Elsewhere, in the frigid waters of the Arctic, orca pods demonstrate a very different flavor of genius. They locate groups of seals perched precariously atop floating ice floes, and, with a choreography that would make any military commander weep with envy, they work together to create waves. The orcas line up, then accelerate in perfect synchrony toward the ice, generating swells that batter and fracture the floes. The helpless seal, thrown off balance or plunged into the freezing sea, becomes an easy target. The execution is flawless, the strategy chilling, and it is passed down through generations, not instinctively, but culturally, like a sacred family recipe for survival. Not all orcas hunt the same way. Remarkably, distinct populations of orcas have evolved unique cultures, separate dialects, hunting methods, even dietary preferences. Some specialize in hunting fish, delicately plucking salmon from the current with the precision of a maestro. Others are mammal hunters, chasing down dolphins, porpoises, even young whales with a ruthless efficiency that would feel almost cruel if it weren't simply survival written in sharp, curved teeth. And astonishingly, these groups rarely mix, maintaining their own identities across oceans and centuries, as if the ocean itself were a patchwork of different nations ruled by killer whales. On a good day, good for the orcas, bad for everything else, they move against prey with the inexorable certainty of an avalanche. A pod targeting a blue whale calf, for instance, is a lesson in predatory persistence. Even the largest creature ever to live is not beyond their ambition. They harry the mother and calf for hours, pushing and biting, exhausting them, forcing them to the surface over and over until the calf weakens. It is a brutal siege, waged not with blind fury but with chilling calculation. In these moments, the ocean feels less like a wilderness and more like a chessboard. And the orcas are the grandmasters. And yet, within the cold genius of their hunts, there is room for quirks, for oddities that make the orcas all the more fascinating. Sometimes after a successful hunt, they seem to celebrate, tossing prey into the air with their powerful flukes, spinning it playfully like a child would with a toy. Scientists debate whether this behavior serves a purpose or if it is quite simply joy. And who could blame them? In a world ruled by constant survival, a moment of triumph deserves a little reckless glee. Even their anatomy speaks to their prowess. Beneath the smooth, rubbery skin lies a labyrinth of specialized muscles, allowing orcas to accelerate like torpedoes or pivot sharply during a chase. Their heads conceal a sophisticated echolocation system, a biological sonar so precise that they can detect the fatty tissue composition of prey, essentially seeing inside animals without ever laying eyes on them. To an orca, the ocean is not a mystery. It is a crystal-clear world of echoes and vibrations, a three-dimensional map where nothing, not even a heartbeat, can hide. But for all their might, orcas are not invincible. They are bound by the same invisible threads that connect all life in the ocean. A missed hunt means hunger. A calf lost to disease or predators is a blow that resonates through the entire pod. And now the silent threats of human interference, chemical pollutants, noise pollution from ships, dwindling fish stocks, weave new dangers into the currents they have ruled for millennia. Even the wolves of the waves must tread carefully in the changing seas. As the pod moves on, fading into the distance like storm clouds retreating across the horizon, the ocean exhales again. Silence returns, but it is not the silence of peace. It is the quiet before the next assault, the stillness before another clever, coordinated strike in nature's endless war for survival. And somewhere, in the sparkling blue just ahead, a new challenger is gathering speed. A blade with fins, a duelist by design, ready to carve its mark into the saga of blood and salt. The swordfish is about to make its entrance, and the dance of predators will take a sharp, dazzling new turn. The open sea stretches in every direction, a shifting tapestry of silver and blue, shimmering beneath the heavy weight of a tropical sun. The air smells of salt and iron, sharp enough to taste, while the water below churns with unseen energy, as if the very ocean itself is bracing for a duel. Far beneath the glittering skin of the surface, a different kind of predator prowls, not with gaping jaws or crushing strength, but with a weapon of almost absurd precision. Here come the gladiators of the deep, the swordfish and marlins, sleek missiles armed with deadly blades, slicing through the great blue wilderness like warriors on a battlefield where speed is life and hesitation is death. A swordfish emerges first, a ghost flickering through the dappled light, its long, flat bill glinting like a drawn rapier. Its body tapers behind it in a perfect arc of muscle and sinew, built not just for swiftness, but for sustained fury. At cruising speeds, it can easily outpace most creatures of its size, but when the hunt demands it, the swordfish can erupt forward at over 60 miles per hour, faster than almost any other predator in the sea. And it does not simply chase, it lunges, it slashes, it carves. Unlike sharks or orcas that rely on brute force, the swordfish plays a different, deadlier game. Striking once, cleanly, and moving on before the ocean even knows what has happened. A school of mackerel, shimmering in a desperate cluster, scatters like coins tossed into a fountain. They are quick, but quickness alone cannot outrun surgical violence. The swordfish darts among them, twisting and turning with balletic grace, its bill whipping in rapid arcs. It does not try to swallow them whole. It simply wounds, slicing with pinpoint swipes that leave trails of blood spiraling down like ribbons through the water. Each wounded fish is left stunned or crippled, easy pickings to be gathered leisurely afterward, like a warrior walking calmly through the aftermath of a battle they have already won. Yet the sword is not just a tool for securing dinner. Astonishingly, swordfish have been recorded attacking animals far larger than themselves, sharks included. In the unpredictable theater of the ocean, there are documented cases where great whites, makos, and even blue sharks have been found with swordfish bills embedded deep in their flesh. Sometimes these impalements are defensive, desperate strikes against an approaching threat. Other times they appear almost preemptive, as if the swordfish, sensing a future danger, decides to settle the matter early and emphatically. And in rare, almost absurd episodes, swordfish have even been known to ram boats, thrusting their bills through wooden hulls or steel plating with the reckless valor of knights charging windmills. Whether through confusion, miscalculation, or sheer audacity, it's a humbling reminder. In the open ocean, even ships are not beyond the reach of a well-aimed blade. Not to be outdone, the marlins swagger onto the scene with their own brand of flamboyant aggression. Blue marlins, black marlins, living torpedoes whose lives are spent in a state of barely contained explosion. They ride the warm currents like gods of the storm, using their spear-like bills in devastating strikes. Where the swordfish is an artist, the marlin is a berserker, a battering ram clothed in midnight and silver. In feeding frenzies, marlins drive into schools of fish, slashing and stunning dozens at a time, often propelling themselves into such ferocious attacks that they breach the surface in mid-frenzy, leaping in chaotic, sparkling arcs before crashing back into the mayhem. There's a paradoxical elegance to their violence, a strange, lethal beauty in the way their scales catch the light in blues and purples and greens, flickering like living opals. Even their eyes are masterpieces of adaptation, capable of adjusting to dizzying changes in light as they plummet through the water column at high speed. Unlike land predators, these blade runners must hunt in a world where their prey moves in 3 dimensions, where attack angles matter more than brute force, and where even a split-second hesitation spells failure. The ocean does not forgive missed opportunities. As the currents flow and swirl with new life, the marlins and swordfish disappear and reappear in flashes, as if the ocean is breathing them in and out. Every so often, a flash of silver will hint at another victim claimed, another skirmish fought and won in a war that never truly ends. Yet even among these champions there is risk. Not every strike lands true. A misjudged slash might embed a bill into coral, or even snap it clean off, leaving a once proud duelist crippled and vulnerable. In this merciless arena, every weapon comes with a price. Still, their daring spirit fuels the mythos of the ocean. For centuries, sailors spun tales of swordfish and marlin charging ships like aquatic knights, mistaking masts for rivals, or battling unseen leviathans beneath the waves. Scientists chuckle at the exaggerations, but not too much. After all, when you stand on the deck of a tiny boat and feel the sudden shudder of a 20-foot marlin hurling itself out of the blue at 40 miles per hour, you start to realize that the legends of the sea may have more salt and truth than we ever dared believe. As the sun dips lower and the surface glows in molten hues, the battlefield of the Blade Runners quiets once more. A trail of torn fish drifts in the current, mute testament to the day's relentless choreography of speed and steel. Somewhere far below, in darker waters where the sunlight dies in silver wisps, new hunters stir, drawn upward by the scent of blood, by the vibrations of wounded prey. Because in the open sea, the dance never ends. It merely changes partners. And next, the spotlight will shift to the true demons of velocity. The tuna, the relentless bullet trains of the deep, ready to turn the blue battlefield into a whirling storm of fury and hunger. The morning ocean blazes under a pitiless sun, its surface polished to a mirror so bright it stings the eyes. Somewhere far below, in the cool blue shadows where the light filters down like broken shards, the water stirs with a growing urgency. First, it is only a flicker, an uneasy quiver of tiny scales flashing in the gloom. Then, suddenly, the deep seems to rupture. A furious congregation surges upward with unstoppable force, tearing the once placid sea into a churning, living storm. The tuna have arrived, and with them, the ancient ballet of chaos and speed begins. In this endless battlefield of blue, tuna are not just hunters. They are the embodiment of motion itself, living arrows launched from the bowstring of evolution. Their bodies, forged in sleek armor of shimmering silver and cobalt, taper to points so fine they could slice the very water. Their muscles, packed in tight, interlocking lattices, ripple with an explosive power that seems almost unfair to their prey. And their hearts, huge and relentless, beat like racing engines, driving blood so rapidly that these creatures can maintain core body temperatures higher than the surrounding water, a rare privilege among fish and one that fuels their tireless assault. What makes tuna truly terrifying, however, is not their speed alone. Though they can hit upwards of 70 kilometers per hour, outpacing most sharks with embarrassing ease, but the way they turn speed into strategy. Alone, a tuna is formidable. Together they become a cataclysm. Dozens, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands, converge into writhing, pulsating battalions, surrounding schools of sardines, anchovies, or herring in a tightening noose of terror. The prey have nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The bait ball is born, a desperate, shimmering orb of life compressed so tightly it almost seems solid, each tiny fish clinging to its neighbor in frantic hope that anonymity will bring salvation. It will not. The tuna strike from all angles, a coordinated blitz of silver streaks slicing into the panicked mass. The water, moments ago so serene, boils with movement, flashes of blood misting into pink clouds that swirl like ink in a watercolor painting. The air above joins the frenzy. Seabirds wheel and dive, gannets plunging like javelins, shearwaters skimming and snatching what they can before being shouldered aside by the relentless predators below. It is a carnival of violence, a tornado of hunger so ferocious that the very physics of the ocean seem to bend in service to it. Yet amidst the bedlam, there is astonishing precision. Tuna do not simply thrash randomly. They coordinate their attacks with a rhythm so uncanny it borders on telepathy. Each predator strikes, pulls back, loops around, and strikes again in a flowing cadence that maximizes both efficiency and opportunity. This isn't mindless slaughter. It is mathematics written in blood, physics manifest in flesh. Even the shape of their fins, retractable and razor-sharp, is designed to minimize drag and optimize angle. Tiny biological miracles born of millions of years of relentless selection. Every so often, a twist breaks the rhythm and reminds us that in nature's theater, even the deadliest performers are not invincible. A miscalculated strike sends a tuna barreling too far into the bait ball's thrashing core, momentarily trapped in a confusion of bodies and scales. For a brief second, predator and prey are indistinguishable, a writhing mass of pure instinct and panic. But the tuna, faster thinking and better built, breaks free with a flick of its muscular tail, leaving a shower of silver confetti behind, and perhaps a minor dent in its pride. There's a charming irony to the tuna's existence. For all their power and speed, for all the terror they inspire in smaller fish, tuna themselves are haunted by an endless pursuit, their own hunger. Their bodies are so optimized for movement that they must remain in constant motion simply to survive, forcing water across their gills to breathe, burning calories at a staggering rate. A tuna that stops moving is not resting, it is dying. Speed, then, is not a luxury. It is their lifeblood, their burden, their curse. And in this strange world of kinetic necessity, size often deceives. The giants of their kind, bluefin tuna, can weigh over half a ton, yet still rocket through the water with a grace and velocity that would shame creatures 1/10 their mass. Watching a bluefin lunge into a bait ball is like witnessing a freight train leap the tracks and pirouette mid-air, a physical contradiction that leaves even seasoned marine biologists shaking their heads in wonder. Below the surface, the feast continues, but nothing in the ocean remains stable for long. The violence of the tuna's assault sends tremors through the water, echoes of opportunity that summon new competitors from the deep. Sharks, ever the opportunists, ghost into the periphery, their cold eyes calculating. Dolphins arrive too, in laughing pods that turn the already frenzied hunt into an outright melee. Each predator has its own tactic, its own style, and the bait ball, caught in the vortex of so many hungers, shatters apart in desperation. By afternoon, the battle has burned itself down. The ocean, always quick to conceal its dramas, closes over the scene, smoothing the surface once more into its serene, glittering mask. Only a scattering of scales, drifting like tiny, silvery snowflakes through the descending gloom, bear witness to the storm that raged here just hours before. But under that deceptively calm veneer, other forces are stirring. As night falls and the waters cool, new hunters will rise from the abyss, creatures honed for a different style of warfare, one waged not in the open, dazzling light, but in the crushing dark where few eyes dare see, and fewer still survive. The silent assassins of the deep are rising, and in their world, light is a weapon, and darkness is the deadliest ally. As the last embers of daylight bleed from the sky, the ocean transforms. The surface, once a shimmering stage for battles of light and speed, now darkens into a heavy, endless shadow, where the blue deepens into black and the laws of survival quietly shift. Beneath the twilight zone, a vast, mysterious realm stretching from 200 meters to nearly 1,000 below, life changes form, adapting to a world where sunlight dies and predators rule by stealth and cunning rather than speed and spectacle. In this dim, pressure-crushed world, new hunters rise, quieter, stranger, and more chilling than anything the sunlit sea could produce. The first to materialize from the gloom is the mako shark, a creature sculpted by the merciless demands of deep-water life. Here, in the thickening dark, the mako's profile appears less like a shark and more like a living dagger, its pointed snout and sickle-shaped fins slicing through the water with a silence that borders on the supernatural. Every fiber of its body is wired for sudden, lethal bursts of motion. Unlike the sluggish wanderers of the abyss, the mako is a sprinter, capable of explosive charges that turn it into a silver blur, attacking before its prey even registers the threat. A creature with a metabolism running almost hot enough to warm the water around it, the mako flashes like quicksilver through the deep, hunting tuna, squid, and even other sharks, as if the twilight zone were its private hunting ground. But even the mako, armed with speed and a mouthful of serrated precision, must bow to the kings of this eerie empire, the cephalopods, the silent stranglers of the deep. It begins with a ripple of motion, almost imperceptible, as if the very water has learned to move independently. Then the form resolves itself. Vast arms lined with suction cups like rows of cold, mechanical mouths, unspooling from the shadows. A giant squid emerges, an alien in a world already strange. Its massive eyes, the largest of any known animal, glowing faintly in the gloom, capable of detecting the faintest glimmers of bioluminescence from 100 meters away. The giant squid does not chase its prey. It traps it, ambushes it with a flurry of tentacles in a ballet that ends with brutal, implacable constriction. Its beak, hidden within a writhing forest of limbs, is sharp enough to shear through bone. Scientists once scoffed at sailors' tales of krakens dragging ships into the deep. Now, with footage of giant squid battling sperm whales at crushing depths, the line between legend and reality blurs, and it becomes clear that in the twilight zone, size, speed, and power take forms far stranger than human imagination dared dream. It's not merely the giants that command this shadow realm. Smaller assassins, lantern sharks with bodies barely larger than a man's forearm, drift through the blackness, glowing faintly with chemical lights stitched along their bellies. They are living paradoxes, shining like stars, yet using their luminescence to disappear, cloaking themselves against the dim glow filtering from above, so that from the right angle they become invisible. Prey that flees from larger, more obvious hunters may swim unknowingly into the jaws of these miniature ghosts, undone not by brute force, but by a sleight of light. The twilight zone itself is a living paradox. While it feels empty and vast, it is teeming with life, a heaving vertical city of creatures that rise and fall each day in the world's largest migration. At night, the hunters ascend closer to the surface, cloaked in darkness to snatch unsuspecting prey drifting in the warmer shallows. By dawn, they retreat into the safety of the deep, away from the predators that rely on the sun's illumination to hunt. It's a silent war waged across vertical miles, where victory belongs to those who master not just the chase, but the very architecture of light and dark. The rules here are governed by stealth and surprise, and evolution, ever the trickster, has equipped these creatures with weapons so bizarre they seem almost whimsical. Some squid species eject clouds of glowing ink, not to blind but to decoy, creating dazzling phantoms that allow them to vanish while their would-be assassins strike empty water. Certain deep-diving sharks grow elaborate, glowing organs near their heads, attracting smaller fish toward what seems like a promising meal, only to become a meal themselves, ambushed in a sudden deadly snap. Even sound becomes a weapon. The clicking pulses of hunting dolphins can stun prey, their echolocation blasts fine-tuned to sow confusion before the final attack. Yet for all the cleverness, the Twilight Zone remains a place of brutal uncertainty. For every successful ambush, there is a failed strike. For every hunter, a lurking predator greater still. A mako shark may blitz a school of squid, only to find itself shadowed by something even larger, something rising from deeper still, a sperm whale, armed with sonar so powerful it can locate a single shark hundreds of meters away, and a jaw capable of reducing it to a ragged cloud of blood and memory. The deeper you go, the more nature abandons the clean, heroic duels of the surface in favor of something more surreal, more nightmarish, and infinitely more unpredictable. In the endless twilight, survival is less about strength and more about becoming part of the gloom, mastering it, vanishing into it, until the moment comes to strike. Every creature must be both hunter and illusionist, both killer and magician. It is a world where even the brightest light can betray you, and even the tiniest misstep can echo your death into the endless dark. And so, as the earth spins and the sun dips farther below the curve of the world, the silent hunters continue their ageless ballet, locked in an invisible war that rages beyond the limits of human sight. Above them, the surface gleams once more in morning light, blissfully unaware of the savage intelligence brooding in the depths below. But while darkness is the ally of some hunters, others have turned their eyes skyward, not for shelter, but for opportunity. Above the waves, where the winds shriek and the sunlight dazzles, a new breed of predator waits to strike. Not from below, but from the very heavens themselves. The ocean, under a vault of blinding blue sky, seems to stretch into forever, dazzling and pure, a mirror too wide for the mind to fully grasp. The breeze whispers along the surface, ruffling the skin of the sea into shivering patterns, carrying with it the faint, sharp scent of salt and fish oil, the perfume of a world perpetually in motion. Far below, predators stalk the depths in shadowed wars, but above this gleaming plain, a different kind of danger looms. Here, in the high, searing winds, the sky itself sharpens into a weapon, and the hunters come with wings instead of fins, with eyes sharper than any blade and a cruelty masked in elegance. It begins with a dot against the sun, a distant smudge lazily circling the thermals, then another, then dozens. They drift like idle thoughts at first, the albatrosses, giants of the wind, their wingspans stretching nearly 3 meters across, sculpted to catch the lightest breeze and ride it for hundreds, even thousands of miles without a single beat. To the untrained eye, they seem harmless, almost lazy. But this is an illusion as old as predation itself. For when opportunity strikes, the albatross becomes something else entirely. A sudden, swooping assassin, a creature of devastating precision that can pluck a surface fish from the water with the ease of a coin being snatched from a fountain. Yet, for all their grandeur, the albatross is merely the vanguard. The true chaos comes with the arrival of the gannets. Their appearance is almost theatrical, flocks wheeling high above, gleaming white against the endless blue, their black-tipped wings slicing the air with an eerie silence. And then, as if obeying some hidden signal, they fold themselves into sharp, living missiles and plummet toward the sea. With bodies streamlined by evolution's harsh hand, the gannets crash into the water at nearly 60 miles per hour, shattering the ocean's surface like glass. The impact is so violent it should break them, and indeed, some unlucky or overly ambitious gannets do suffer broken necks in the plunge. But more often they emerge victorious, thrashing upward with a struggling fish clamped firmly in their beaks. It is not brute strength that wins this aerial assault. It is timing, perfect and unrelenting. Fish near the surface, already harried by predators from below, are trapped in a deadly pincer between two worlds, pursued from the depths and ambushed from the sky. Panic sends them scattering toward the light, only to find death raining down like hailstones. The sea boils with silver flashes and foamy churn as gannets dive and dive again, a relentless storm of beaks and wings and splash. Above even this fray, the frigate birds lurk, kings of piracy, faces of mischief painted in black feathers and hooked beaks. They have no interest in diving. Their bodies are too light, their wings too vast, their hollow bones too delicate for such brutish labor. Instead, they specialize in theft. With eyes as sharp as sniper scopes, they track the gannet's successes and then swoop in, turning the victorious divers into victims themselves. A gannet bursts upward, triumphant, only to be harassed mid-air by a frigate bird, twisting and clawing until the exhausted gannet drops its hard-earned catch in terror or frustration. In an elegant arc, the frigate bird snatches the falling fish from mid-air, an effortless theft executed with a panache that almost demands applause. It is survival by cunning, not conquest, and the ocean, ever impartial, allows both hunter and thief their moment. The air above the sea becomes a war zone, wings clash, screeches echo over the waves, sharp and raw. Fish leap in desperate arcs to avoid the slaughter from below, only to be skewered from above. It is a furious, swirling chaos, a reminder that in the wild, the beautiful is often only a hair's breadth away from the brutal. And the ocean plays its tricks even here. For while the albatross may ride winds for months without touching land, and the frigate bird may sleep while gliding at the heights, conserving every scrap of energy, the gannet, for all its ferocity, must one day come crashing back to shore, battered and weary, a warrior paying the price of endless war. Some will survive, some will not. Nature, in its ruthless poetry, favors not just the strong but the adaptable, the ones who know when to strike and when to soar. Above the squabbling flocks, the clouds begin to gather, painting bruised streaks across the once pristine sky. A change is coming. A storm brews beyond the horizon, and with it, a different kind of frenzy will descend, not of hunters chasing prey, but of survival itself against the raw, merciless force of weather. Yet before the winds tear across the sea, there is one last act to witness, a phenomenon of blood and madness, where the ocean itself seems to convulse in hunger. The feeding frenzies are about to begin, and in their heart, the very laws of order and chaos will dissolve into a swirling, shrieking tempest of life and death. The ocean, so often a canvas of gentle blues and tranquil glitters, now shifts into something altogether different, darker, more primal, more alive with unseen violence. A heavy, expectant pressure settles over the water, the kind of weight that animals feel before a storm, though no clouds mar the sky. Beneath the surface, the world contracts into a boiling cauldron of instinct and blood, and somewhere in the deep, the first note of chaos sounds. A tremor, a flicker, a ripple of life about to be unmade. It begins with a shimmer, subtle enough to be mistaken for a trick of the light. Tiny fish, 1,000 strong, convulse into a living ball, their silver flanks catching the sun in frantic flashes. They spin tighter and tighter, drawn together not by cooperation but by terror, each trying to hide behind the body of another. It is a strategy as old as their bloodlines, safety in the panicked multitude. But today, safety is an illusion. From below, the sleek torpedoes of tuna punch upward into the mass, scattering scales like metallic snow. Around them, dolphins, faster, more agile, more deliberate, dart in and out, corralling the frantic fish into ever denser knots, using bubble walls and shock tactics to herd their prey with shepherd-like precision. The sea itself seems to roar, churned into a frothy battlefield of flashing fins and gleaming teeth. Suddenly the water fractures again, and a new terror joins the feast. Sharks, dozens of them, sleek bodies writhing in tight circles, mouths agape, teeth snapping blindly into the writhing mass. There is no choreography here, no careful strategy, only raw, brutal gluttony. Great white tips, bronze whalers, duskies, all spiraling through the crimson vortex, the ocean frothing pink with blood and pulverized flesh. The frenzy is so intense that even the sharks cannot avoid injuring each other, slashing at companions as much as at prey, each animal caught in the madness of the moment where instinct drowns out every other thought. Above the chaos, seabirds hover and dive, drawn to the scent of carnage. Gulls shriek, their cries thin and manic, snatching at bits of floating meat, while gannets spear downward in kamikaze dives, adding their own sharp violence to the maelstrom. It is as if every hungry thing in the ocean and sky has answered an ancient, irresistible call, a summons to the blood feast, where all debts of survival are settled in teeth and beak and muscle. Not far from the main melee, a separate drama unfolds in quieter but no less brutal fashion. Orcas cruise the outer rings of the frenzy, their massive dorsal fins cutting the surface like scythes. Where sharks rely on madness, orcas employ method. Spotting a solitary stingray seeking refuge from the chaos, one of the matriarchs flips her prey with a deft, almost casual flick of her snout. The ray, upended and stunned, floats helplessly on the surface, a soft, vulnerable meal, before disappearing in a flash of white jaws. Younger orcas mimic the move, practicing, playing, learning to perfect the techniques that will one day decide their survival. In a world where opportunity vanishes as fast as a heartbeat, even killing becomes a skill to be honed with precision. The frenzy deepens. Tuna, sensing the water thickening with the blood of their brethren, redouble their assault, slashing and tearing with merciless efficiency. But they too must be cautious. In this roiling mass of movement, the line between hunter and hunted blurs dangerously. A moment's hesitation, a wrong turn, and even a predator can become a victim, dragged down by the relentless machinery of mouths and hunger. Amidst it all, the ocean's quiet ironies unfold. Tiny cleaner fish, fearless and methodical, dart in and out of the carnage, plucking parasites from the gills of frenzied sharks and dolphins mid-attack, oblivious to the larger drama of life and death swirling around them. They are the unacknowledged undertakers of the reef, thriving in the very heart of destruction, proof that even amid apocalypse, life finds strange footholds. The senses are overwhelmed. The thick, coppery scent of blood saturates the water. The constant vibrating noise of bodies crashing, thrashing, tearing. The blinding flashes of silver, red and white beneath the waves. Time distorts in the frenzy. Minutes stretch into endless cycles of attack and retreat, a looping nightmare where survival hangs on razor-thin margins. And then, almost imperceptibly, the feast begins to ebb. The bait ball, once a writhing, shimmering globe of desperation, is reduced to a scattering of torn bodies and drifting scales. The sharks, gorged and sluggish, spiral wider and slower, their frenzied energy spent. The dolphins, ever calculating, peel away in small groups, chirping and clicking in triumph as they chase the few survivors still fleeing across the open water. The seabirds, their bellies distended and wings heavy, rise lazily into the air, their raucous cries fading into satisfied silence. The sea, its surface churned and bloodied, slowly begins to heal. The scars of the battle, shredded fins, bloodstains, drifting corpses, are swallowed by the vastness, erased by currents that move without pity or memory. The ocean returns to its glassy facade, serene once more, as if nothing had ever disturbed it. But the memory of the frenzy lingers, vibrating in the water like the last fading notes of a terrible song. And for those who survived, predator and prey alike, the lesson is burned deeper than instinct. In the blue battlefield, victory is fleeting, death is never far, and the price of one good meal may be another's last breath. Yet, even in this theater of blood and savagery, the ocean holds surprises still. For in the next chapter of this endless drama, the stage will shrink, the assassins will grow smaller, and lethality will come cloaked in deceptive miniature forms. Tiny terrors are stirring, creatures whose venom, spines, and poisons can kill more swiftly than jaws ever could. The sea from a distance always seems to favor the grand. The towering whales, the flashing sharks, the swirling clouds of seabirds. But venture closer, slip beneath the rolling waves where the sunlight fractures into trembling shafts of gold, and another reality unfurls. Here, size is no guarantee of safety, and terror often wears the smallest mask. In the flickering labyrinth of currents and coral, it is not the giants that rule unchallenged, but the tiny assassins, the micro-monsters, creatures so swift, so ruthlessly efficient, that death arrives before the victim even knows it has been chosen. A whisper through the reef betrays the first hunter. The barracuda, slender and silver as a blade, floats motionless at first, suspended in the turquoise haze. Its body gleams like burnished steel, muscles tight beneath its mirror-bright scales. Barracudas are not giants. Many barely stretch a meter in length, but they have mastered the art of the sudden strike. One moment, they are part of the scenery. The next, they explode forward in a blur so fast the human eye struggles to follow. With a single lunge, they slice through prey fish, jaws snapping shut with such ferocity that the water around them seems to shudder. A careless glance would label them simple ambush predators, but there is a chilling intelligence behind those cold, glassy eyes, a patience that few predators possess. They wait, calculating, until the precise moment when a slight misstep, a wrong flick of a fin, betrays their target. Then the ocean itself seems to sharpen, and the kill is made. Yet even barracudas, with their lightning reflexes and rapier teeth, must tread carefully, for the waters are thick with stranger, more treacherous foes. The true nightmares of the reef and open currents are often the ones without teeth at all. Jellyfish, those delicate, transparent ghosts, drift lazily on unseen tides, their fragile bells pulsing with hypnotic grace. To the untrained eye, they are almost beautiful, ethereal in their glowing stillness. But beauty in the ocean is often the prelude to death. Some species, like the box jellyfish, are armed with tentacles so toxic that a brush against human skin can bring paralysis, cardiac arrest, and death in minutes. Their stinging cells fire venom-tipped harpoons with microscopic speed, faster than a bullet leaving a gun, a biological miracle of lethality wrapped in gossamer threads. In the timeless game of survival, where brute strength often fails, the jellyfish have chosen elegance and chemistry, and it is a choice that works with merciless precision. Further still, in the shadowed coves where river mouths kiss the sea, another terror waits. Piranha-like fish, small, glinting slivers of fury that belie their reputation as freshwater monsters. Their marine cousins, the black pacu, certain snapper species, share the same strategy: overwhelm with numbers, overwhelm with speed. A single fish poses little threat, but when the feeding frenzy ignites, they become a roiling, glittering storm of slicing jaws. It is not rare to find a larger animal, injured or weakened, reduced to a skeleton within minutes, stripped clean by dozens of tiny mouths that work faster than the eye can track. In a particularly ironic twist, it is often the smallest wounds inflicted by these miniature predators that carry the deadliest price. A tiny jellyfish sting can weaken a powerful tuna, making it easy prey for larger hunters. A sudden gouge from a barracuda can slow a swift herring just enough for a dolphin to snap it up. In the endless battlefield of the sea, even the slightest disadvantage tips the scales, and often it is the smallest attacker that sets the fall into motion. Even the sea's gentler-looking creatures hide lethal surprises in miniature form. Cone snails, adorned with shells as intricate and colorful as fine jewelry, conceal a harpoon within their soft, unassuming bodies. A venomous dart capable of delivering toxins that can paralyze and kill. Some species of blue-ringed octopus, no larger than a golf ball, carry venom powerful enough to end dozens of lives. They flash their namesake blue rings as a warning, but it is less a gesture of mercy and more a grim courtesy, a final dazzling fanfare before the kill. There is a mischievous humor in nature's love for paradox. In a world where one might reasonably expect the largest jaws to inspire the deepest fear, it is often the smallest stings, the tiniest bites, that decide fates. Evolution, it seems, delights in crafting assassins that fit in the palm of a hand, yet wield the power to humble giants. But even the micro-monsters face their own dangers. In this merciless economy of size and hunger, nothing is ever secure. Barracudas may fall prey to larger predators like groupers or sharks. Jellyfish may be devoured whole by leatherback turtles, whose mouths and throats are lined with backward-facing spines, a grotesque but effective solution to swallowing gelatinous prey. Tiny octopuses, for all their cleverness, must evade moray eels, groupers, and even clever birds that have learned to pluck them from tide pools during low tides. No weapon, no matter how exquisite, offers a guarantee. And so the drama of the ocean spirals ever onward, a symphony conducted by creatures great and small, each playing their role in the eternal dance of survival. The micro-monsters remind us that lethality is not measured by mass or muscle, but by strategy, speed, and a willingness to strike when the moment demands it. As the sun begins to dip, casting long shadows across the restless sea, the great predators of the deep, sharks, dolphins, even orcas, stir once again. But tonight, the stage will belong to a different cast entirely. As darkness falls, the most elusive ghostly hunters will rise, and the night sky will no longer belong solely to the stars. A new breed of killer is taking flight, one that stalks under cover of night with silent wings and deadly eyes. The ocean lies hushed under the fading light of a weary sun, its vastness stretching into a soft, endless blue that darkens at the edges where the sky folds into the horizon. It is easy, standing at the shore or peering from a ship's railing, to believe this ancient kingdom is immutable, that the great hunters who have carved their legends into these waters are eternal, that the dramas of chase and survival will simply go on, as they have for millions of years, uninterrupted, unchallenged. But if you listen closely, deeper than the crash of the waves or the call of distant gulls, you might hear it. A quieter, more insidious sound. The slow, fraying unraveling of a world that once seemed indestructible. Beneath the surface, the predators still move with their ageless grace. Great whites carve their ghostly paths along coastal shelves. Orcas patrol the open blue, their matriarchs guiding pods through the secret highways of the sea. Makos, tuna, swordfish, each honed for their role in the blood-soaked ballet of survival. But their world has begun to change in ways they cannot outrun or outfight. It begins, as many tragedies do, almost invisibly. A drift net abandoned at sea, a slick of oil bleeding from a ruptured tanker, a scatter of plastic bags dancing like jellyfish in the currents. The threats are subtle at first, a background murmur against the ancient rhythms of the tides. Then the murmur grows louder. Overfishing, relentless and mechanized, strips away entire populations of prey species, sardines, mackerel, anchovies, the very lifeblood of marine hunters. The tuna, built to chase and consume these swarming fish, find themselves sprinting for longer, growing leaner, risking more for ever smaller rewards. The great whites, apexes of a delicate web, discover that where once seal colonies thrived in hundreds, now clusters survive in mere dozens. The food chains, once taut and humming with life, sag and fray, weakening the very framework that has supported the ocean's predators for millennia. Climate change arrives not like a predator, but like a fever. Subtle, pervasive, inescapable. The oceans warm degree by imperceptible degree, but the consequences are catastrophic. Coral reefs bleach into ghostly skeletons, collapsing the vibrant metropolises that fed 1,000 species. Currents shift their paths, disrupting ancient migratory routes that once ferried prey reliably into the waiting jaws of hunters. Some species, like certain sharks and tuna, begin to venture into colder waters, chasing conditions that no longer exist in their ancestral homes. Others, trapped by geography or physiology, wither quietly where they are, betrayed by a world that no longer matches the blueprint etched into their blood. And pollution, the silent creeping plague, poisons even the most remote corners of the deep. Heavy metals, microplastics, and industrial chemicals seep into the flesh of fish and the organs of whales. Predators, who sit atop the food chain, accumulate the worst of these toxins in their bodies, carrying invisible burdens that weaken immune systems, dull senses, and disrupt the delicate choreography of life and reproduction. In a cruel twist of fate, the ocean's greatest survivors, animals that have outlived cataclysms, ice ages, and mass extinctions, now find themselves undone not by fang or claw, but by the tiny, ceaseless damage of human ambition. Yet even amid this looming tragedy, the ocean holds on to its stubborn, awe-inspiring resilience. Some predators adapt with breathtaking ingenuity. Orcas diversify their diets, shifting from whale calves to fish when necessary, inventing new hunting strategies passed down through matriarchal lines like ancient, living wisdom. Some sharks, long thought to be rigid in their migratory patterns, begin appearing in unexpected places, pioneers charting new territories on behalf of their fading kin. Tuna, those tireless silver torpedoes, display a physiological flexibility that offers a glimmer of hope, the ability to regulate body temperatures in ways that might, just might, allow them to thrive even as seas shift. And humanity, once only the destroyer, is not without redemption. Sanctuaries bloom like fragile dreams across the seas, marine protected areas where fishing is banned, trawling is forbidden, and life is allowed for a moment to breathe again. Researchers tag great whites with satellite transmitters, mapping migrations never fully understood before, knowledge that could help protect birthing grounds and feeding hotspots. Conservationists wrestle with governments and industries, fighting to outlaw shark finning, to regulate tuna quotas, to push the great machinery of human progress onto a path less lethal. Still, the clock ticks. The ocean's predators, These living monuments to speed, power, and ancient cunning stand at a precipice. They have ruled longer than the dinosaurs walked the earth. They have shaped ecosystems with the silent authority of emperors. And yet now, for the first time in their history, their fate lies not in their own talons or teeth or swift killing blows, but in ours. If we choose to act, if we preserve the swirling bait balls, the deep migration corridors, the sprawling reef cities, there is hope. Hope that the open sea will continue to ripple with the silver flashes of hunting tuna, to thunder with the breaches of great whites, to echo with the song-like cries of orcas slicing through a bait ball. Hope that future generations will witness these blood tides not in history books or holographic museums, but in living, breathing reality. As the sun slips below the curve of the earth, gilding the waters in a fleeting blaze of molten gold, the hunters still move beneath the waves. Silent, relentless, magnificent. But for how much longer, the ocean seems to ask, will we be worthy of sharing a world with them?